Hello everyone. Before the story start, tell me where are you watching from and what time is it?
The park was the kind of place that time had forgotten. Not deliberately, not with any cruelty, but the way things are forgotten when the city grows up around them and moves on. The paths were cracked, the benches were weathered, the fountain had not held water in years. But the oak tree at the center of the park was older than all of it. Older than the paths, older than the benches, older than the city itself. Its trunk was wide, its branches reached toward the sky like arms that had been raised for centuries, and its bark was thick and dark and full of scars. I had walked past this tree 100 times without stopping. It was just there, the way the sky is there, the way the ground is there. Something you pass without noticing until something makes you stop. Tonight, something made me stop. She was standing at the base of the tree, her back to me, her hand resting on the trunk. She was young, or not young, or the kind of face that makes you forget to wonder about age. Her coat was gray, her hair was dark, her fingers were pale against the dark bark. She was not moving. She was just standing there, her hand on the tree, as if she was listening to something only she could hear. I walked toward her. The grass was wet, the way grass is wet when the sun has gone down and the dew has settled. My footsteps were soft, but she heard me. She did not turn, but she spoke. "It's still here," she said. "The name. The one you carved. It's still here." The tree grew around it, but it never disappeared. It's under the bark now. You can't see it. But it's there. It's always been there. I stopped beside her. I looked at the trunk. The bark was rough, dark, scarred by years of weather and growth. I could not see any name. I could not see any carving. But she was right. It was there. I had put it there, a long time ago, when I was young enough to believe that carving a name into a tree was the same as making something last forever. "I forgot," I said. "I forgot I did that." She turned. Her face was familiar in a way I could not name. The shape of her jaw, the curve of her mouth, the way her hair fell against her cheek. She was me. Or she was the version of me who had stayed. The version who had not walked away from this tree, from this park, from the name I had carved into the bark. "You didn't forget," she said. "You just stopped looking. The name was always there. The tree held it. The tree always holds what it's given. It doesn't let go. It just grows around it." I looked at the trunk again. I put my hand on the bark. It was rough, cold, the way bark is cold when the sun has gone down. But beneath my fingers, beneath the roughness, I could feel something. A smoothness. A place where the bark was thinner, where the tree had grown around something that was not tree. The name. My name. The name I had carved when I was young enough to believe that carving a name into a tree was the same as promising to stay. "Why did you come back?" I asked. "Why now?" She looked at the tree, at the place where the name was hidden, at the bark that had grown over it. "Because the tree is old. Older than the park. Older than the city. It's been standing here for centuries, holding everything that's been carved into it. Names, initials, dates. Promises. It holds them all. And someday, the tree will fall. Someday, the park will be gone. Someday, the city will grow over everything. But the names won't disappear. They'll be in the wood. They'll be in the roots. They'll be in the ground. They'll be here longer than any of us." She looked at me. Her eyes were dark, the color of the bark, the color of the earth. "I came back because I wanted you to know. I wanted you to remember. I wanted you to put your hand on this tree and feel the name you carved and know that it's still here. That you were here. That you mattered." I pressed my hand harder against the bark. The smoothness was there, beneath the roughness, the place where the tree had grown around my name. I had carved it when I was 12, or 13, or young enough to think that my name on a tree would mean something. I had come to this park with a pocket knife and a feeling I could not name. I had carved my initials into the bark. L.S. I had stood back and looked at them and felt something that was not pride or joy or anything I had words for. It was something else. Something like hope. Something like the belief that I would be remembered. I had not been back to this park in years. I had forgotten the tree, the carving, the feeling. But the tree had not forgotten. The tree had held it. The tree had grown around it. The tree had kept it safe. "Who are you?" I asked. "Why do you know about the carving? Why do you care?" She smiled. It was a sad smile, the smile of someone who had been asked that question many times. "I'm the one who carved it with you. I was there. I was the one who held the knife. I was the one who said, 'Carve your name. Carve it deep. The tree will hold it.' I was the one who promised that I would come back. That I would always come back. That I would stand by this tree and remember." I looked at her. At her face, her hands, her eyes. And I knew her. I had always known her. She was the friend I had lost. The one I had walked away from. The one I had left in this park, by this tree, with my name carved into the bark and a promise I had not kept. "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't come back. I forgot. I forgot the tree. I forgot the carving. I forgot you." She reached out and put her hand on mine. Her fingers were cold, the way bark is cold, the way earth is cold. "I know. That's why I came back. To remind you. To show you that the tree remembered. That I remembered. That the carving is still here, under the bark, waiting for you to find it." We stood there, our hands on the trunk, our fingers on the place where the bark had grown over my name. The park was quiet. The city was far away. The tree was old, older than both of us, older than the park, older than the city. It had been standing here for centuries, holding the names of everyone who had ever carved into its bark. It would stand here for centuries more. And my name would be in it. Under the bark, in the wood, in the rings that recorded every year of its life. My name. L.S. carved by a child who wanted to be remembered. "I'll come back," I said. "I'll come back to this tree. I'll put my hand on the bark and remember. I'll remember the carving. I'll remember you. I'll remember that I was here." She nodded. She took her hand from mine. She stepped back from the tree. The light from the street caught her face, and for a moment, she was not a stranger. She was the person I had been. The person who had carved a name into a tree and believed it would last forever. "The tree will hold it," she said. "It will always hold it. And now you know. Now you'll remember. Now you'll come back." She walked away. Through the grass, past the fountain, toward the gate. She did not look back. I stood by the tree, my hand on the bark, my fingers on the place where my name was hidden. I stayed there for a long time. The park grew darker. The city grew quieter. The tree stood above me, old and patient, holding everything I had given it. I still go back. Not often. Enough to remember. I walk through the park, past the fountain, to the oak tree at the center. I put my hand on the trunk. I find the place where the bark is smooth, where the tree grew around my name. I press my fingers against it. I feel the carving beneath the bark, the initials I scratched into the wood when I was young enough to believe that carving a name into a tree was the same as promising to stay. I think about her. The friend who carved with me. The one who promised to come back. The one who did come back, even when I forgot. She stood by the oak tree, where the bark had grown around a name carved long ago. And she waited. She waited for me to remember. She waited for me to come back. And now I do. I come back. I remember. I stand by the tree, my hand on the bark, and I know that some things last. Some things are held. Some things are remembered, even when we forget. The tree remembers. The bark holds. The name is there, under the surface, waiting for someone to find it. And now, I have found it. Now, I will not forget again. The wind came from nowhere. That was the first strange thing. I had been walking through the park, the same park I had walked through 100 times, the one with the old oak and the cracked paths and the fountain that hadn't worked in years. The air had been still, heavy with the kind of quiet that comes before rain. And then the wind came. Not from the east or the west. From nowhere. From everywhere. It rose up from the ground, or fell from the sky, or simply appeared, and with it came the leaves. They were dry, brown, the kind of leaves that had been on the ground for weeks, waiting for someone to step on them or sweep them away or leave them to rot. The wind lifted them. Not up and away, the way wind lifts leaves in autumn, scattering them across the grass. It lifted them straight up. Toward the sky. The leaves fell upward, against gravity, against everything I knew about how the world worked. They rose in a column, a spiral, a shape that I recognized even as I watched it form. I stopped walking. The leaves rose higher, spinning, twisting, forming a pattern I had seen before. Not in the park. Not in any park. In a dream. A dream I had years ago, one I had forgotten until this moment, when the leaves began to move and the shape emerged and the memory came flooding back. In the dream, I was standing in a field. The grass was green, the sky was blue, and the leaves were falling upward. Not from trees. From the ground. They rose from the earth and spiraled into the sky, forming patterns that I could almost read, almost understand. I had woken from that dream with a feeling I could not name. Something like longing. Something like loss. Something like the sense that I had been shown something important and had forgotten it before I opened my eyes. Now, in the park, the leaves were doing the same thing. Rising upward, spinning, forming the same pattern I had seen in the dream. I stood at the edge of the column and watched. The leaves were not random. They were arranged. They were making something. A shape. A symbol. A word in a language I did not speak but almost remembered. The wind stopped. The leaves hung in the air for a moment, suspended, as if the world had paused to catch its breath. Then they fell. Not scattered. Not drifting. They fell together, settling back to the ground in the same pattern they had made in the air. A spiral. A circle. A shape that was too deliberate to be chance. I knelt down. The leaves were on the grass, brown and dry, arranged in a pattern that was clear from above but from the ground looked like nothing. I touched one of the leaves. It was cold, the way leaves are cold when they have been in the shade. But beneath my finger, I felt something else. A vibration. A pulse. The leaf was not just a leaf. It was part of something. Part of the pattern. Part of the dream. I looked around. The park was empty. The trees were still. The fountain was dry. But I was not alone. I could feel someone watching me. Someone standing at the edge of the clearing, just out of sight, just beyond the reach of the streetlights. I stood up. I turned. She was standing under the old oak, her hand on the trunk, her face turned toward me. She was young, or not young, or the kind of face that makes you forget to wonder. Her coat was gray, her hair was dark, her eyes were the color of the leaves, brown and deep and full of something I could not name. "You saw it," she said. Her voice was soft, the way voices are soft when they are speaking a truth they have known for a long time. The leaves. The pattern. You saw it. I nodded. I could not speak. The pattern was still in my vision, burned into my eyes the way light burns into your eyes when you look at the sun. The spiral. The circle. The shape I had seen in a dream. It's the same, she said. The dream and the leaves. They're the same. The pattern repeats. It's been repeating for a long time. Longer than you know. Longer than anyone knows. The leaves fall upward, and they settle into the pattern, and the pattern is the same pattern that has always been. The one from the dream. The one from before. She stepped away from the tree. She walked toward me, her steps slow, her eyes on the leaves at my feet. She stopped a few feet away and looked down at the pattern. Do you know what it means? I asked. She shook her head. No one knows. Not really. Not anymore. But it means something. It's a message. Or a memory. Or a map. It's something that was left here, a long time ago, by someone who wanted to be remembered. The leaves fall upward, and they make the pattern, and the pattern stays until the wind comes again. And then it's gone. And then it comes back. The same pattern. Every time. I looked at the leaves. The spiral was still there, clear in the dim light, a shape that was both familiar and strange. I had seen it in my dream. I had seen it in other places too, now that I was thinking about it. In the grain of wood. In the curl of smoke. In the way water moved when it drained from a sink. The pattern was everywhere. I had just never noticed. Why am I seeing it now? I asked. Why here? Why tonight? She looked at me. Her eyes were not brown anymore. They were the color of the sky, the color of the space between the leaves, the color of something that had been waiting for a very long time. Because you're ready, she said. Because you've been walking through this park for years, looking at the ground, looking at the trees, looking at the fountain. And you never looked up. You never saw the leaves fall. You never saw the pattern. But tonight, you did. Tonight, you saw. Tonight, you remembered. She knelt down. She put her hand on the leaves, on the spiral, on the center of the pattern. Her fingers were pale, thin, the fingers of someone who had touched this pattern many times. The dream was not just a dream, she said. It was a memory. A memory of something that happened, or something that will happen, or something that is happening right now, in a place you can't see. The leaves are the same. They're not just leaves. They're pieces of something. Pieces of the pattern. Pieces of the message. And when they fall upward, they're trying to tell you something. They're trying to show you something. They're trying to remind you of what you already know. She looked up at me. Her face was young, or old, or the face I had seen in the dream, the face I had forgotten until this moment. You already know the pattern, she said. You've always known it. It's in you. In your bones. In your blood. In the way your heart beats. The leaves are just showing you what you already carry. The dream was just reminding you of what you already remember. I knelt down beside her. I put my hand on the leaves. The spiral was cool under my fingers, the way leaves are cool when they have been on the ground for weeks. But beneath the coolness, there was warmth. A pulse. The same pulse I had felt in the leaf I touched earlier. The pattern was alive. It was breathing. It was waiting. What do I do? I asked. She smiled. It was a small smile, the smile of someone who has been asked that question many times. You remember. You carry the pattern with you. You let it be part of you. And when the leaves fall upward again, you watch. You see. You know that it's the same pattern, the same message, the same memory. And you let it settle into you, the way it settles into the ground. She stood up. She looked at the sky, at the trees, at the park that was older than the city. The wind will come again. The leaves will fall upward. The pattern will return. And you will be here. Or you won't. But you'll remember. The pattern is in you now. It's always been in you. You just needed to see it to know. She walked away. Through the grass, past the fountain, toward the gate. She did not look back. I stayed by the leaves, my hand on the spiral, my fingers on the pattern I had seen in a dream. I stayed there until the wind came again, until the leaves rose upward, until the pattern lifted into the air and scattered across the sky. I watched them go. I watched them fall. I watched them settle into a new pattern, the same pattern, the one I had seen in my dream. I stood up. I walked home. The city was the same. The streets were the same. The life I had been living was the same. But I was not the same. I had seen the leaves fall upward. I had seen the pattern settle into the ground. I had remembered the dream I had forgotten. And now, the pattern was in me. In my bones. In my blood. In the way my heart beat. I still walk through the park. I still watch the leaves. Sometimes, when the wind is right and the light is low, they fall upward. They spiral into the sky. They settle into the pattern. And I stand at the edge of the clearing, and I watch, and I remember. The dream. The leaves. The pattern. The thing I have always known and am only now learning to see. The leaves fall upward, then settle back down in a pattern I'd seen in a dream. And now, I know. The dream was not just a dream. The leaves are not just leaves. They are the same thing. They are the pattern. They are the message. They are the memory. And I am part of it. I have always been part of it. I just needed to see. And now, I see. The room was quiet. That was the first thing I noticed when I sat down. Not the silence of an empty house, but the kind of quiet that comes when sound has been removed, like a blanket thrown over everything. The city was outside the window, but I could not hear it. The refrigerator hummed somewhere in the kitchen, but I could not hear it. There was only the quiet, and the chair I was sitting in, and the darkness behind my eyelids when I closed my eyes. I closed my eyes because I was tired. Not the tired of a long day, but the tired of years, the kind of tired that settles into your bones and makes you forget what it felt like to be awake. I closed my eyes, and I waited for sleep, or for nothing, or for whatever comes when you stop trying to hold on. The laughter came from nowhere. Or it came from everywhere. It was distant, the way sound is distant when it travels through walls, through rooms, through years. But it was clear. Clear as a bell, clear as water, clear as the voice of someone you have not heard in a very long time. I knew the laugh. I had known it my whole life. It was the laugh of someone I had lost. I opened my eyes. The room was empty. The city was still silent. The refrigerator hummed, but I could hear it now, a low drone that had always been there. The laughter was gone. I sat in the chair, my heart beating too fast, my hands gripping the armrests, and I waited. I closed my eyes again. The laughter returned. Not louder, not closer. The same distance, the same clarity. It was her laugh. The one I had not heard in years. The one I had forgotten I remembered. She was laughing at something, something I could not see, something that had happened in a moment I had not been part of. But the laugh was the same. The way it rose at the end, the way it caught in her throat, the way it made you want to laugh too, even if you did not know what was funny. I tried to see her. In the darkness behind my eyes, I tried to find her face, her hands. The way she stood when she was laughing. But there was nothing. Just the sound. Just the laugh, distant but clear, echoing in the quiet of the room, in the quiet of my mind. I opened my eyes. The room was the same. The chair, the window, the light from the street. But something had shifted. Something had been opened. A door I had closed a long time ago was now ajar, and through it, I could hear her. Not see her. Just hear her. But that was enough. I closed my eyes again. The laugh came again. And again. And again. Each time, it was the same. Distant, clear, the laugh of someone I had lost. I sat in the chair, my eyes closed, my hands still, and I listened. I listened to the laugh rise and fall, to the way it caught in her throat, to the way it made me feel, even now, even after all these years, that I was not alone. She had been gone for a long time. Years. Decades. I had stopped counting. I had stopped remembering. I had put her in a box in the back of my mind and closed the lid and told myself that was where she belonged. But the laugh had found me. The laugh had opened the box. The laugh had reminded me that she was not just a memory. She was a sound. A sound that had not disappeared. A sound that was still here, somewhere, distant but clear. I started going to the chair every night. I would sit down, close my eyes, and wait for the laugh. It always came. Not immediately. Sometimes I had to wait for minutes, for hours. But it always came. The same laugh. The same distance. The same clarity. I would listen to it rise and fall, and I would try to remember more. Her face. Her hands. The way she said my name. But the laugh was all I could hear. It was enough. It had to be enough. One night, the laugh was different. It was closer. Not much, just a little. But I could tell. The distance had shrunk. The clarity had sharpened. I sat in the chair, my eyes closed, my breath held, and I listened. The laugh came again. Closer still. I could almost feel it, the vibration of it, the way sound moves through air and settles on skin. I opened my eyes. The room was empty. But I was not alone. I could feel her. Not see her. Not hear her, except for the laugh. But she was there. Somewhere. In the room. In the chair beside me. In the space between the quiet and the sound. Why now? I asked. The words came out before I could stop them. The room was silent. The refrigerator hummed. The city was distant. And then, the laugh came again. Not from somewhere in the room. From somewhere in me. The laugh was inside me. It had always been inside me. I had just stopped listening. I closed my eyes. The laugh was closer now, or I was closer, or the distance between us had finally collapsed. I could hear her. Not just the laugh. Her. The way she breathed. The way she shifted in her seat. The way she was about to speak. "I've been here," she said. Her voice was soft, the way voices are soft when they have been waiting for a long time. "I've always been here. You just stopped listening. You closed your eyes, but you didn't listen. You forgot that I was still here. That I was still laughing. That I was still waiting for you to hear." I tried to speak. The words would not come. I sat in the chair, my eyes closed, my hands shaking, and I listened. Her voice was the same. The same tone, the same rhythm, the same way she paused before the important words. I had forgotten. I had forgotten her voice. I had forgotten the sound of her. But now, I was remembering. "I lost you," I said. The words came out rough, broken, the way words come when you have not said them in a very long time. "I lost you, and I couldn't find you. I looked. I looked everywhere. But you were gone." Her laugh came again. Soft, distant, clear. You didn't lose me. You just stopped listening. I was here. In the quiet. In the spaces between sounds. In the chair where you sit. I was here, waiting for you to close your eyes and hear. I opened my eyes. The room was empty. The chair beside me was empty. The light from the street was the same. But I was not the same. I had heard her. I had heard her laugh, her voice, her presence. She was here. She had always been here. I had just forgotten how to listen. I still sit in the chair. Every night, I close my eyes and I listen. The laugh comes. Sometimes distant, sometimes close. Sometimes it is just the laugh. Sometimes she speaks. She tells me things. Things I had forgotten. Things I had never known. Things that are only for me, in the quiet, in the dark, in the space between what I lost and what I found. I do not know if she is real. I do not know if the laugh is real. I do not know if I am hearing her or remembering her or imagining her. But it does not matter. She is here. She is with me. And when I close my eyes, I am not alone. I am with her. In the quiet. In the dark. In the place where sound becomes memory and memory becomes sound. I closed my eyes and heard the laughter of someone I had lost, distant but clear. And now, I hear it every night. It is not a dream. It is not a wish. It is a door that opened, a door I had closed a long time ago, and through it, she came back. Not to stay. Just to visit. Just to laugh. Just to remind me that she was here. That she had always been here. That I had only to close my eyes and listen. I close my eyes now. The room is quiet. The city is silent. The refrigerator hums, but I do not hear it. I hear her. I hear her laugh. Distant but clear. And I am not alone. I will never be alone again. She is here. In the quiet. In the dark. In the laugh that rises and falls, that catches in her throat, that makes me want to laugh too. Even now. Even after all these years. Even when I close my eyes and listen. The chair was old. That was the first thing I noticed when I moved into the apartment. It was sitting in the corner of the living room, pushed against the wall, covered in a sheet that had yellowed with age. The woman who had lived here before me had died, and her family had taken almost everything, but they had left the chair. Maybe they didn't want it. Maybe they didn't have room. Maybe they knew something I didn't know. I pulled off the sheet and looked at it. The wood was dark, the upholstery was worn, the arms were smooth in places where hands had rested for years. It was not a beautiful chair. It was not a comfortable chair. But it was there, and I needed a place to sit, so I pulled it into the center of the room and sat down. The wood was cold. The upholstery was stiff. I sat in the chair for a few minutes, looking at the empty room, the bare walls, the windows that faced the street. Then I stood up. I did not sit in the chair again. I bought a new chair, a comfortable one, and put it by the window. The old chair went back to the corner, pushed against the wall, covered with a new sheet. I forgot about it. The way you forget about things that are old and worn and not yours. She came to the apartment on a Tuesday. I don't know why I let her in. I didn't know her. She was standing in the hallway when I opened the door, her hand raised to knock, her coat gray, her hair dark, her eyes the color of the wood in the old chair. She asked for someone I had never heard of, someone who must have lived here before me. I told her they were gone. I told her I was sorry. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, looking past me into the apartment. Then she asked if she could come in. I don't know why I said yes. I didn't know her. But there was something in her face, something in the way she looked at the empty rooms, that made me step aside and let her pass. She walked through the apartment slowly, touching nothing, just looking. She stopped in the living room. She turned to the corner where the old chair sat under its sheet. She walked toward it. She pulled off the sheet. She looked at the dark wood, the worn upholstery, the arms that were smooth in places where hands had rested for years. This was hers, she said. Her voice was soft, the way voices are soft when they are speaking about someone they have lost. She sat in this chair every day. At the end, she couldn't leave it. She slept in it. She ate in it. She lived in it. And when she died here. In this chair. I did not know what to say. I stood in the doorway of the living room and watched her touch the armrest. Her fingers were pale, thin, the fingers of someone who had been waiting for a long time. She traced the curve of the wood, the place where the finish had worn away, the place where the grain was smooth and dark. She cried here, the woman said. At the end, she cried a lot. She was in pain. She was scared. She was alone. She would sit in this chair and cry, and her tears would fall on the armrest. Right here. Where I'm touching. She pressed her palm flat against the wood. I watched her hand, her fingers, the way they seemed to sink into the surface. And then, the wood grew warm. I saw it. Or I felt it. The dark grain seemed to lighten, to glow, to hold the heat of something that had been waiting for a very long time. It remembers, she said. The wood remembers. The tears soaked in, years ago, and the wood held them. It's been holding them ever since. Waiting for someone to touch it. Waiting for someone to feel what she felt. I stepped closer. The wood was warm, I could feel it from where I stood, a heat that did not come from the sun or the radiators or anything in the room. It came from the chair. It came from the tears that had fallen on the armrest years ago. It came from the woman who had died here, alone, in the dark, crying. Who was she? I asked. The woman looked at me. Her eyes were the color of the wood, dark and deep and full of something I could not name. She was my mother. I wasn't here when she died. I was far away. I didn't know she was sick. I didn't know she was alone. I didn't know she was crying. By the time I found out, she was gone. And the chair was here. And the tears were in the wood. Waiting. She took her hand off the armrest. The wood cooled. The warmth faded. But something remained. A presence. A feeling. The sense that someone had been here, in this room, in this chair, and had left something behind. You can feel it too, she said. I know you can. You've been living here for months. You've walked past this chair 100 times. You've covered it with a sheet and pushed it into the corner and tried to forget it. But you knew. You knew something was here. Something that didn't belong to you. Something that was waiting. I looked at the chair. At the dark wood, the worn upholstery, the armrest where the grain was smooth and dark. I had felt it. Not consciously. But I had felt it. The way you feel something in the corner of your eye, something you can't quite see. The way you feel a presence in an empty room. The chair had been waiting. The tears had been waiting. And now, the woman had come to touch them. Why now? I asked. Why did you come back now? She put her hand on the armrest again. The wood grew warm, the grain glowed, the heat spread through the dark surface like water. Because I'm ready. Because I've been running from this chair for years. From her tears. From the fact that I wasn't here. From the guilt. But you can't run from something that's in the wood. You can't run from something that's waiting. Eventually, you have to come back. Eventually, you have to touch it. Eventually, you have to let it warm your hand. She closed her eyes. Her fingers pressed into the wood, into the place where the tears had fallen, into the memory of her mother's grief. I watched her face. The way her jaw relaxed. The way her shoulders dropped. The way something that had been held tight for a very long time began to loosen. She knew you would come back, I said. The words came out before I could stop them. She knew. That's why she left the chair. That's why she let her tears fall here. She wanted you to find them. She wanted you to touch them. She wanted you to know that she was thinking of you. At the end. Even when she was alone. Even when she was crying. She was thinking of you. The woman opened her eyes. They were wet, the way eyes are wet when tears have been waiting for a long time. She looked at me, at the chair, at the wood that had grown warm under her hand. How do you know? She asked. I did not know. But I felt it. In the warmth of the wood, in the silence of the room, in the presence of someone who had died years ago but had left something behind. I felt it. She had been thinking of her daughter. At the end. In the chair. In the dark. She had been crying for her. And the wood had held the tears. The wood had held the love. The wood had held the grief. And now, her daughter was here, touching it, feeling it, finally letting it in. I just know, I said. She smiled. It was a small smile, the smile of someone who has been carrying something heavy for a very long time and is finally setting it down. She took her hand off the armrest. The wood cooled. The grain darkened. The warmth faded. But something remained. A peace. A stillness. The sense that something had been completed. I'll go now, she said. I won't come back. I don't need to. The chair will remember. The wood will hold it. But I don't need to touch it anymore. I've felt it. I've let it in. I've let her in. She walked to the door. She paused with her hand on the frame and looked back at the chair, at the armrest where her mother's tears had fallen, at the wood that had held them for so long. Thank you, she said. For letting me in. For letting me touch it. For letting me feel it. And then she was gone. The apartment was quiet. The chair sat in the corner, dark and worn, the sheet on the floor where she had dropped it. I walked to the chair. I put my hand on the armrest. The wood was cold. The grain was dark. But beneath my fingers, beneath the surface, I felt something. A warmth. Faint, fading, but there. The tears were still there. They would always be there. The wood would hold them. The chair would remember. I did not cover the chair again. I left it in the corner, uncovered, the armrest smooth and dark, the grain holding the memory of tears that had fallen years ago. Sometimes, when the apartment is quiet and the light is low, I walk to the chair. I put my hand on the armrest. The wood is cold. But beneath the cold, there is warmth. The warmth of someone who was loved. The warmth of someone who cried. The warmth of someone who left something behind for the person who would come looking. She touched the armrest, and the wood grew warm where tears had once landed. And now, when I touch it, I feel it too. The grief. The love. The waiting. The wood holds it all. The chair remembers. And I am just the one who lives here now, in this apartment, with this chair, with these tears, with the warmth that comes and goes but never disappears. The bench was at the edge of the park, under a tree that had lost most of its leaves. I had walked past it 100 times without sitting. It was not a bench that invited sitting. The wood was gray, weathered, cracked in places where the sun and rain had done their work. The slats were worn smooth in the center, the way would get smooth when it has held the weight of many people over many years. I had always kept walking. But tonight, I was tired. Not the tired of a long day, but something deeper. The kind of tired that makes you stop and sit on a bench you have walked past 100 times, because your legs will not carry you any further. I sat down. The wood was cold beneath me, the way wood is cold when the sun has gone down and the dew has settled. I leaned back, put my hands on the edge of the bench, and let out a breath I had not known I was holding. And the bench creaked. It was not the creak of old wood settling. It was something else. A sound that seemed to come from deep within the bench, from the grain itself, from the place where the wood had been holding its breath for years. It creaked like it remembered me. Like it had been waiting for me to sit down. Like it had held my weight before, in another life, in another time, when I was someone else. I sat very still. The creak faded, but something remained. A feeling. A presence. The sense that I had been here before. Not in this park, not on this bench, but somewhere like it. A bench under a tree. A cold evening. A weight settling into old wood. I had done this before. I had sat on this bench before. I had felt it creak beneath me before. I looked at the tree above me. The branches were bare, the bark was dark, the roots were thick where they broke through the ground. I had seen this tree before. Not in this park. In a dream. Or a memory. Or something that was both. The tree had been younger then, or I had been younger, or time had been different. But it was the same tree. The same bench. The same creak. A woman sat down beside me. I did not see her approach. She was just there, on the bench, her hands folded in her lap, her face turned toward the tree. She was young, or not young, or the kind of face that makes you forget to wonder. Her coat was gray, her hair was dark, her eyes were the color of the bark, deep and still. "It remembers you," she said. Her voice was soft, the way voices are soft when they are speaking to someone they have known for a very long time. The bench. It remembers your weight. It remembers the first time you sat here. And the second. And all the times in between. It's been holding that weight for years, waiting for you to come back and add to it. I looked at her. Her face was familiar. The curve of her jaw, the shape of her mouth, the way her hair fell against her cheek. I had seen her before. On this bench. In this park. In another life. "I don't remember," I said. "I don't remember sitting here before. I don't remember you." She smiled. It was a sad smile, the smile of someone who has been waiting for a long time and is used to being forgotten. "You will. The bench remembers. The wood holds everything. Every weight, every breath, every moment. It's all in the grain. And when you sit here, when the bench creaks, it's not just the wood settling. It's the wood speaking. It's telling you that you've been here before. That you've sat here before. That you've been here, with me, in another life." I put my hand on the wood beside me. The slats were smooth, worn by years of use, by the weight of countless people who had sat here and rested and moved on. But beneath my fingers, I felt something else. A groove. A dip. A place where the wood had been worn by something specific. A hand. A body. A weight that had been here many times, in the same spot, pressing into the wood until the wood remembered. "That's you," she said, pointing to the groove. "That's where you sat. In the other life. You sat in that spot, and you leaned forward, and you put your elbows on your knees, and you let the bench hold you. You did it so many times that the wood began to change. It began to take your shape. It began to remember you." I traced the groove with my finger. It was smooth, deeper than the rest of the wood, worn by something that had pressed against it again and again. I could almost feel it. The weight of my body, the pressure of my hands, the way I had sat on this bench in another life, in another time, when I was someone else. "What happened?" I asked. In the other life. What happened to me? What happened to us? She looked at the tree, at the branches, at the sky that was darkening between the leaves. You left. You sat on this bench for the last time, and you stood up, and you walked away. You didn't look back. You didn't say goodbye. You just left. And the bench remembered. It held your weight. It held the shape of you. It waited for you to come back. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were wet, the way eyes are wet when tears have been waiting for a long time. I waited too. I sat on this bench every day, waiting for you to come back. Waiting for you to sit beside me. Waiting for the bench to creak with your weight. But you didn't come. Not in that life. Not in that time. You were gone. And I was here. Alone. On this bench. Waiting. I looked at the bench. At the groove where I had sat. At the place beside it, where she had sat, where the wood was worn in a different way. Two grooves, side by side, worn by two people who had sat here together, in another life, in another time. The bench remembered us. The wood had held our weight. It had held our presence. It had held our waiting. I'm here now, I said. I came back. I sat down. The bench creaked. It remembered me. She nodded. She put her hand on the bench, on the place where she had sat, on the groove that had been worn by her weight. You came back. Not in the same life. Not in the same time. But you came back. The bench remembered. I remembered. And now, we're here. Together. On this bench. In this life. We sat in silence. The tree moved above us, the branches swaying in a wind I could not feel. The bench creaked softly, the way wood creaks when it is settling, when it is holding something it has been waiting to hold. I felt my weight press into the wood, into the groove that had been worn by another version of me. The bench accepted it. The bench welcomed it. The bench had been waiting. How long do we have? I asked. In this life. How long do we get to sit on this bench? She smiled. It was not a sad smile this time. It was something else. Something like peace. We have as long as the bench remembers. As long as the wood holds our weight. As long as the tree stands. And after that, we'll come back. In another life. On another bench. Under another tree. And the wood will creak, and we'll remember. Not with our minds. With our bodies. With the weight we press into the wood. With the grooves we wear into the grain. I leaned back. The bench creaked beneath me, a long, low sound that seemed to come from the earth itself. I felt my weight settle into the wood, into the groove that had been waiting for me. Beside me, she leaned back too. The bench creaked again, a different note, a harmony, the sound of two weights pressing into old wood. We sat there for a long time. The night deepened. The stars came out between the branches. The bench held us, the way it had held us in another life, the way it would hold us in another life to come. I did not want to leave. I did not want to stand up and walk away and let the bench wait again. But I knew I would. Not tonight. Not soon. But eventually. And the bench would remember. The wood would hold my weight. And when I came back, in another life, on another bench, it would creak, and I would know that I had been here before. I still come to this bench. Not every night, but often. I sit in the groove that was worn by another version of me. I feel the wood press against my weight, the way it has pressed against the weight of everyone who has sat here before. She is not always here. Sometimes I sit alone. But the bench remembers her too. The groove beside me is worn smooth, waiting for her to come back. I sat on the bench, and it creaked like it remembered my weight from another life. And now, I know that it did. It remembered. The wood remembered. The bench remembered. And I am beginning to remember too. Not with my mind. With my body. With the weight I press into the old wood. With the creak that rises from the grain. I have been here before. I will be here again. And the bench will wait. The bench always waits. The plaza was empty. That was the first thing I noticed when I stepped out of the building. Not the usual emptiness of late evening, when the workers have gone home and the tourists have retreated to their hotels. This was different. A hollow kind of empty, as if something had been taken out of the air and nothing had been put back in its place. The fountain was still. The benches were bare. The statues stood in their corners, gray and patient, watching over nothing. And the pigeons circled. They were everywhere. Above the fountain, above the benches, above the statues. They circled in the darkening sky, their wings catching the last light of the day, their bodies dark against the fading blue. They circled and circled, never landing. I stood at the edge of the plaza and watched them. There were hundreds, maybe thousands. They moved in a pattern that was almost deliberate, a spiral that tightened and loosened, a dance that had no end. I had seen pigeons before. Everyone had seen pigeons. They were the rats of the sky, the scavengers of the city, the birds that landed on statues and left their marks and strutted across the pavement like they owned the place. But these pigeons were different. They did not land. They did not strut. They did not peck at crumbs or fight over scraps. They just circled. Circled and circled, as if the air itself was too heavy for them to break through, as if the ground was no longer a place they could touch. I walked to the center of the plaza. The pigeons circled above me, their shadows passing over my face, my hands, the ground at my feet. I could hear their wings, a soft rush of air that was almost a whisper, almost a voice. They were speaking, or trying to speak, or speaking in a language I could almost understand. A woman was standing by the fountain. I had not seen her when I first entered the plaza. She was just there, leaning against the edge of the stone, her arms folded, her face turned toward the sky. She was young, or not young, or the kind of face that makes you forget to wonder. Her coat was gray, the color of the pigeon's wings, her hair was dark, her eyes were fixed on the circling birds. "They never land," she said. Her voice was soft, the way voices are soft when they have been watching something for a very long time. "They've been circling for days. Weeks. Months. I've lost track. They just keep circling. They don't eat. They don't sleep. They just fly. Around and around, like they're waiting for something. Like they're waiting for the air to get lighter. Like they're waiting for permission to land." I looked up at the pigeons. They were still circling, the same pattern, the same spiral, the same endless motion. I had never seen anything like it. Pigeons were ground birds. They landed. They strutted. They fought over French fries. They did not circle for days without rest. Why? I asked. What's keeping them up? She looked at me. Her eyes were the color of the sky, the color of the space between the circling birds, the color of something that had been waiting for a very long time. "The air is heavy. Heavier than it should be. Something is in it. Something that wasn't there before. Something that makes it hard to fly, hard to breathe, hard to land. The pigeons feel it. They're trying to find a way through. They're trying to find a place where the air is light enough to let them down." I breathed in. The air felt normal. Cold, the way air is cold in the evening, but not heavy. Not thick. I breathed out. The pigeons circled. Their wings whispered. The woman watched. "You can't feel it," she said. "Not yet. But you will. The heaviness is growing. It's been growing for a long time. It started small, in one corner of the city, in one alley, in one room. And it spread. It spread through the streets, through the parks, through the plazas. And now it's here. In the air. In the sky. In the space where the pigeons used to fly. She pushed off from the fountain. She walked toward me, her steps slow, her eyes still on the birds. She stopped a few feet away and looked at the ground, at the pavement where the pigeons should have been landing, should have been strutting, should have been living. They used to land here, she said. Every evening, they would come to this plaza. They would sit on the edge of the fountain. They would peck at the crumbs the tourists left behind. They would coo and strut and fight and mate and live. And then the heaviness came. And they stopped landing. They took to the air and they haven't come down since. I looked at the fountain. The water was still, the surface dark, reflecting the circling birds. I could almost see them, the pigeons that used to be here, the ones that had landed and lived and left their marks on the stone. They were gone now. Replaced by the ones in the sky, the ones that circled and never came down. What happens when they get tired? I asked. They have to land eventually. They have to rest. She shook her head. They don't get tired. The heaviness keeps them up. It's like the air is holding them. Like it won't let them fall. They don't need to rest because they're not really flying. They're just suspended. Caught in something. Waiting for it to release them. She looked at me. Her eyes were not the color of the sky anymore. They were the color of the pigeon's wings, gray and dark and full of something I could not name. You're like them, she said. You've been circling too. Not in the air. In your life. In your mind. You've been going around and around, never landing, never resting, never finding a place to stop. You've been caught in something. Something heavy. Something that won't let you down. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to say that I was not like the pigeons, that I landed, that I rested, that I had a place to stop. But as I stood there, in the empty plaza, with the birds circling above and the woman watching and the air growing heavier by the moment, I felt something shift. Something that had been circling in me for a long time began to slow. Began to wonder if it could land. I don't know how to stop, I said. The words came out before I could stop them. I don't know how to land. She nodded. She reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were cold, the way air is cold when it is heavy, the way stone is cold when it has been sitting in the dark. No one does. Not anymore. The heaviness has made us forget. It's made us think that circling is the only way. That landing is impossible. That the ground is not a place we can touch. She squeezed my hand. Her grip was firm, the grip of someone who had been holding on for a very long time. But the pigeons remember, she said. Somewhere, deep in their bird brains, they remember what it was like to land. To feel the ground under their feet. To peck at crumbs and strut and fight and mate and live. And someday, the heaviness will lift. And they will land. And so will you. I looked up at the pigeons. They were still circling, the same spiral, the same endless motion. But something was different. Something had changed. The spiral was loosening. The birds were spreading out, moving apart, as if the air was beginning to let them go. It's happening, the woman said. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. The heaviness is lifting. Not much. Just a little. But it's lifting. The pigeons can feel it. They're starting to break free. One of the pigeons broke from the spiral. It flew in a wide arc, away from the others, toward the edge of the plaza. It circled once, twice, 3 times. And then it landed. On the edge of the fountain. Its feet touched the stone. Its wings folded. It stood there, gray and still, looking at the water, looking at the sky, looking at the pigeons that were still circling. "One," the woman said. "That's all it takes. One pigeon to remember how to land. The others will follow. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. But someday. They'll remember. And they'll come down." She let go of my hand. She walked toward the fountain, toward the pigeon that had landed, toward the place where the heaviness had lifted just enough to let something touch the ground. She knelt beside the bird. It did not fly away. It sat there, still and patient, as if it had been waiting for her. "You see," she said. "It's possible. Landing is possible. Rest is possible. Stopping is possible. You just have to wait for the heaviness to lift. You just have to be ready when it does." She stood up. She looked at me, at the pigeons still circling, at the sky that was darkening between their wings. "I'll be here," she said. "When you're ready to land. I'll be here, by the fountain, waiting. The pigeons will be here too. The ones that landed and the ones that are still circling. And the heaviness will lift. It always lifts. Not all at once. But enough. Enough for one pigeon to land. Enough for one person to stop." She walked away. Through the plaza, past the statues, toward the street. She did not look back. I stood by the fountain, watching the pigeon that had landed, watching the others circle, watching the sky grow dark. I still go to the plaza. Not every night, but often. I stand by the fountain and watch the pigeons. They circle, the same spiral, the same endless motion. But sometimes, one of them breaks away. Sometimes, one of them lands. Not on the fountain. On the ground. On the pavement where they used to strut. They stand there, gray and still, as if they are remembering something they had forgotten. I am waiting. For the heaviness to lift. For the air to lighten. For the moment when I can stop circling and land. The woman said she would be here. By the fountain. Waiting. I look for her sometimes, in the corners of the plaza, by the statues, in the shadows of the buildings. I don't always see her. But I know she is here. She is waiting. The pigeons are waiting. The air is waiting. And someday, the heaviness will lift. Someday, I will land. The bench was at the end of the pier, the one that jutted out into the river like a finger pointing at nothing. I had walked to the end of this pier 100 times, maybe more. It was the place I came when I needed to think, when I needed to not think, when I needed to stand at the edge of something and look out at the water and feel small. The bench was old, the wood gray and weathered, the slats cracked in places where the sun and rain had done their work. I had never sat on it. I had never had a reason to sit. But tonight, I was tired. Not the tired of a long day, but something deeper. The kind of tired that makes you sit on a bench you have never sat on before, because standing is too much to ask. I sat down. The wood was cold beneath me, the way wood is cold when the sun has gone down and the river is dark. I put my hands on the slats beside me, and my finger found a scratch. It was deep, deeper than the others, a line that had been carved into the wood with something sharp. I traced it with my fingertip, following the groove from one end to the other. It was not a random scratch. It was a shape. A heart. Someone had carved a heart into this bench, years ago, when the wood was newer and the river was the same and the world was different. I traced the heart again. The wood was rough, the edges of the scratch worn smooth by time, by weather, by the hands of other people who had sat on this bench and traced this same line. And as my finger followed the curve, I felt something. Not the wood. Not the cold. Something else. A feeling that was not mine. A weight that pressed against my chest, that made it hard to breathe, that sat behind my eyes like tears that would not fall. It was a heartbreak. Not mine. someone else's. The person who had carved this heart into the bench. Or the person who had sat here after them, reading the carving, feeling the loss. It was in the wood. The scratch had held it. The bench had held it. And now, my finger had found it, and it was flowing into me, the way water flows into a hollow, the way sound flows into silence. I pulled my hand away. The feeling faded, but it did not disappear. It lingered, in my chest, in my throat, in the place where my own heartbreaks lived. I looked at the carving. It was small, smaller than I had thought, the lines uneven, the heart lopsided. Someone had carved it with care, but not with skill. Someone who had wanted to leave a mark, to say something, to make something that would last longer than they would. I traced it again. The feeling returned, stronger this time. A sadness that was not my own. A loss that I had not lived. I could almost see her. The woman who had sat on this bench, years ago, her pocket knife in her hand, her heart heavy. She had carved this heart for someone. Someone who was gone. Someone who had left her sitting on this bench, looking out at the river, wondering if they would ever come back. The wood beneath my finger was warm now. Not the warmth of the sun, which had set hours ago. The warmth of something that had been held. The warmth of a feeling that had been pressed into the wood and had never left. I traced the heart again, and again, and again. Each time, the feeling grew clearer. The woman's face. Her hands. The way she had sat on this bench, alone, watching the water, waiting for someone who did not come. I heard footsteps on the pier. I looked up. A woman was walking toward me, her steps slow, her coat gray, her hair dark. She was young, or not young, or the kind of face that makes you forget to wonder. She stopped a few feet from the bench and looked at me, at the carving, at my finger still tracing the heart. "You found it," she said. Her voice was soft, the way voices are soft when they have been crying and are trying to hide it. The heart. I carved it a long time ago. I didn't think anyone would ever notice it. I didn't think anyone would ever trace it. I took my hand off the wood. The warmth faded. The feeling in my chest loosened, but it did not let go. "I felt it," I said. "The heartbreak. It's in the wood. It's been there since you carved it." She nodded. She sat down on the bench beside me, not close, but not far. She looked at the river, at the dark water, at the lights on the far bank. I was young. Too young to know that carving a heart into a bench doesn't make someone stay. I thought if I left a mark, if I made something permanent, they would feel it. They would know that I was here, waiting. They would come back. She put her hand on the carving, on the heart she had made years ago. Her fingers traced the same lines my fingers had traced. Her face was still, but I could see the grief in her eyes, the grief that had been pressed into the wood and was now rising to the surface. "They didn't come back," she said. "They never came back." I sat on this bench for weeks, watching the river, waiting for a boat that never came. And then I stopped waiting. I stopped coming. I left the heart here, in the wood, and I walked away. I thought I had left the heartbreak too. But I hadn't. It was still in me. It was always in me. And now, it's in the wood too. Waiting for someone to find it. I looked at the river. The water was dark, moving slowly, the way water moves when it is deep and old and has seen too much to hurry. I thought about the heartbreak I had felt, the one that was not mine. It was heavy, the way heartbreak is heavy, the way loss settles into your bones and makes everything harder. But it was not mine. I could feel it, but I did not have to carry it. "Why did you come back?" I asked. "After all these years. Why did you come back to this bench?" She took her hand off the carving. She looked at me, her eyes wet, the way eyes are wet when tears have been waiting for a long time. "Because I heard someone was here. Someone was tracing the heart. Someone was feeling what I had felt. I didn't know who. I didn't know why. But I knew I had to come. I had to see who had found it. I had to know that the heartbreak was not just mine anymore. She smiled. It was a small smile, the smile of someone who has been carrying something heavy for a long time and is finally setting it down. You felt it. You traced the heart, and you felt it. That means it's not just in me anymore. It's in you too. Not the same. Not as heavy. But it's there. You'll carry it for a while. And then you'll put it down. And someone else will find it. And they'll carry it. And the heartbreak will keep moving, the way water moves, the way time moves, the way love moves when it has nowhere else to go. She stood up. She looked at the bench, at the carving, at the heart she had made years ago. I'm not going to carve another heart. I'm not going to leave another mark. This one is enough. It's held what it needed to hold. It's been felt by who needed to feel it. And now, I can let it go. She walked away. Down the pier, toward the city, toward the life she had built after she stopped waiting. I watched her go. She did not look back. I sat on the bench for a long time, my hand on the carving, my finger tracing the heart. The feeling was still there, the heartbreak that was not mine, but it was lighter now. The way things are lighter when they have been shared. I still come to this bench. Not every night, but often. I sit at the end of the pier, and I trace the heart that someone carved years ago. I feel the heartbreak that is not mine, and I carry it for a while, and then I put it down. The bench was at the edge of the river, the one I had been coming to for years. It was not a special bench. The wood was gray, the slats were cracked, the view was nothing but dark water and the lights of the city on the far bank. But it was my bench. The place I came when I needed to sit and think about nothing, or everything, or whatever had been sitting on my chest that day. Tonight, I had come because I could not sleep. Because the apartment felt too small. Because the walls felt too close. Because I needed to be somewhere that was not inside. I sat down. The wood was cold, the way wood is cold when the sun has been gone for hours. I put my hands in my pockets and looked at the river. The water was dark, moving slowly, the way it always moved. The lights on the far bank reflected on the surface, shivering in the current. I sat there for a long time, breathing, watching, thinking about nothing. She sat beside me. I did not see her approach. I did not hear her footsteps. I did not feel the bench shift under her weight. She was just there, on the bench beside me, her hands in her lap, her face turned toward the river. She was young, or not young, or the kind of face that makes you forget to wonder. Her coat was gray, her hair was dark, her eyes were the color of the water. I did not startle. I did not turn. I did not ask who she was or where she had come from. I just sat there, looking at the river, and she sat beside me, not making a sound, not changing the weight of the bench. We sat in silence for a long time. The river moved. The lights shivered. The city hummed somewhere behind us. I did not speak. She did not speak. There was nothing to say. Or there was everything to say, but the silence was enough. I come here often, I said finally. My voice sounded strange in the quiet, too loud, too rough. When I can't sleep. When I need to think. When I need to not think. She nodded. Her face did not change. Her eyes stayed on the water. I know, she said. Her voice was soft, the way voices are soft when they have been speaking to themselves for a long time. I've been watching you. Not in a strange way. Just noticing. You come here at the same time, sit on the same bench, look at the same water. You don't move much. You don't look around. You just sit and breathe and let the river hold your eyes. I looked at her. Her face was familiar in a way I could not name. The curve of her jaw, the shape of her mouth, the way her hair fell against her cheek. I had seen her before. Not in this place. In another place. In another time. In a dream I could not quite remember. Do I know you? I asked. She smiled. It was a small smile, the smile of someone who has been asked that question many times. You used to. A long time ago. Before you forgot. Before you started coming to this bench. Before you started sitting in the dark and watching the water and pretending you were alone. I looked at the river. The lights shivered. The water moved. I tried to remember. Tried to find her face in the years behind me. But there was nothing. Just the bench, the river, the dark. I don't remember, I said. She nodded. I know. That's why I'm here. To remind you. Not with words. With silence. With sitting. With not changing the weight of the bench. You forgot that someone used to sit beside you. That you were not always alone. That there was a time when the bench was heavy with two people, not one. I looked at the bench. At the space between us. At the way the wood did not creak, did not shift, did not acknowledge that she was there. She was sitting beside me, but she was not changing the weight. The bench felt the same. The wood felt the same. The cold felt the same. She was there, and she was not there, and I did not know which was true. What are you? I asked. A ghost? A memory? Something I made up because I've been sitting on this bench for too long? She turned to look at me. Her eyes were dark, the color of the water, the color of the space between the lights. I'm the part of you that stayed. The part that didn't leave. The part that sat on this bench years ago and never got up. You walked away. You went back to your life. You forgot. But I stayed. I've been sitting here ever since, waiting for you to come back and sit beside me. I looked at her hands. They were folded in her lap, pale, still. I looked at my own hands, in my pockets, warm, alive. We were the same. Or we had been the same. A long time ago, before the forgetting. Why did I leave? I asked. She looked at the river. The lights shivered. The water moved. Because you had to. Because staying was not an option. Because the bench was not a place you could live. You had to go back to the city, to the apartment, to the life that was waiting. But you left something behind. You left me. The part of you that wanted to stay. The part of you that wanted to sit on this bench forever and watch the water and never move. She reached out and put her hand on the bench between us. Her fingers were pale against the dark wood. She did not touch me. She did not try to hold my hand. She just placed her hand there, on the wood, where my hand had been, where her hand had been, where the bench had held the weight of both of us. I've been waiting, she said. Not for you to come back and stay. Just for you to come back and sit. Just for you to remember that I'm here. That I never left. That the bench is not empty when you're not on it. That I've been holding this place for you, keeping it warm, keeping it ready. I put my hand on the bench beside hers. Our fingers were close, almost touching, but not quite. The wood was cold. Her hand did not warm it. She was not changing the weight. She was not changing anything. She was just there. I don't know how to bring you back, I said. I don't know how to make you real. I don't know how to sit on this bench and feel you beside me and know that you're not just something I made up because I'm lonely. She smiled. It was not a sad smile. It was something else. Something like peace. You don't have to bring me back. I never left. You just forgot how to feel me. You forgot that the bench can hold two people without changing the weight. You forgot that presence is not about pressure. It's about attention. It's about sitting still and knowing that someone is there, even if you can't see them, even if you can't feel them, even if the wood doesn't creak. She took her hand off the bench. She folded her hands in her lap. She looked at the river. The lights shivered. The water moved. I looked at her face, at the curve of her jaw, at the shape of her mouth, at the way her hair fell against her cheek. She was me. Or she was the part of me that had stayed. The part that had been sitting on this bench for years, waiting for me to come back and sit beside her. I'll come back, I said. Not to stay. Just to sit. Just to remember. Just to be here with you, on this bench, watching the water, not changing the weight. She nodded. I know. That's all I ever wanted. Not for you to stay. Just for you to come back. Just for you to sit beside me. Just for you to remember that you are not alone. That you have never been alone. That the bench has always been heavy with two people, even when you thought you were the only one sitting on it. We sat in silence. The river moved. The lights shivered. The city hummed. I did not know how long we sat there. Time moved differently on the bench, the way time moves when you are sitting beside someone who is not changing the weight. Eventually, I stood up. I looked at the bench. She was still there, sitting, her hands in her lap, her face turned toward the water. I'll come back, I said. She did not turn. She did not speak. She just sat there, on the bench, by the river, in the dark, waiting. I walked away. I did not look back. I did not need to. She was there. She had always been there. She would always be there. I still come to this bench. Not every night, but often. I sit down. The wood is cold. The river is dark. The lights shiver on the water. And she sits beside me. Without making a sound. Without changing the weight. She is there, the part of me that stayed, the part that never left, the part that has been holding this place for me for years. I do not see her. I do not hear her. But I feel her. In the silence. In the stillness. In the space between my breath and the river. She is there. She has always been there. And I am not alone. I have never been alone. The bench is heavy with two people, even when I am the only one who knows. The park was empty. That was the first thing I noticed when I walked through the gate. Not the usual emptiness of late evening, when the last of the dog walkers have gone home and the teenagers have retreated to their basements. This was different. A stillness that felt deliberate, as if the park had been holding its breath, waiting for something. The paths were bare. The benches were empty. The trees stood in their places, dark and patient, their leaves rustling in a wind I could not feel. I walked to the center of the park. The fountain was there, the one that had been running for as long as I could remember. It was not a grand fountain. Just a circle of stone, a column of water rising from the center, falling back into the basin. The water had always moved the same way. Up, then down. Up, then down. A rhythm that had become part of the park, part of the city, part of the background noise of my life. Tonight, the fountain stopped. I was standing a few feet away when it happened. The water was rising, the way it always rose, the column steady, the spray catching the light from the lamps. And then it stopped. Mid-spray. The water hung in the air, suspended, as if time had paused and forgotten to start again. I stared at it. The droplets were frozen, each one separate, each one catching the light, each one hanging in the air like a moment that had decided not to end. And then the water ran backward. It was slow at first. The droplets that had been rising began to fall, but not toward the basin. They fell back toward the center, toward the column, toward the source. The column itself began to shrink, the water retreating into the pipe, the spray dissolving, the sound of the fountain reversing from a splash to a trickle to a silence that was deeper than any silence I had ever heard. The water ran backward until there was nothing. The basin was empty. The stone was dry. The fountain was still. I stood at the edge of the basin and looked at the place where the water had been. There was no sound. No movement. Just the dry stone, the dark sky, the empty park. I heard footsteps on the path behind me. I turned. A woman was walking toward me, her steps slow, her coat gray, her hair dark. She was young, or not young, or the kind of face that makes you forget to wonder. She stopped at the edge of the fountain and looked at the empty basin. "It does that sometimes," she said. Her voice was soft, the way voices are soft when they have been watching something for a very long time. The fountain. It stops. It runs backward. No one knows why. It's been doing it for years. Longer than anyone can remember. The water goes back to where it came from, and the basin is empty, and the park is quiet. And then, after a while, the water comes back. It starts again. The same water. The same spray. The same rhythm. I looked at the basin. The stone was dry, the same stone that had been wet for as long as I could remember. I reached out and touched it. It was cold, the way stone is cold when it has been sitting in the dark. There was no moisture. No dampness. Nothing to suggest that water had ever been there. Why? I asked. Why does it do that? She looked at the center of the basin, at the pipe where the water had come from, where the water had returned to. Because it remembers. The water remembers where it came from. It remembers the ground, the earth, the deep places where it was before it was pushed up into the air. And sometimes, it goes back. It returns to the source. It visits the place where it began. She looked at me. Her eyes were the color of the water, the color of the spray, the color of something that had been moving for a very long time. "You're like that," she said. "You've been moving forward for so long that you've forgotten where you came from. You've forgotten the source. The place where you began. And sometimes, you need to go back. You need to stop. You need to run backward, the way the water does, to remember what it felt like to be in the ground, in the dark, in the place before the spray." I looked at the fountain. The basin was empty. The stone was dry. But I could feel something. A presence. A memory. The water was not gone. It was just somewhere else. Underground. In the pipes. In the earth. Waiting to come back. Can it come back? I asked. The water. Will it come back? She nodded. It always comes back. The water returns. The spray starts again. The fountain runs forward, the way it always has. But it needs to go backward first. It needs to remember. It needs to visit the source. And then it comes back. The same water. The same spray. The same rhythm. But different. Because now it remembers. She stepped closer to the basin. She put her hand on the stone, on the place where the water had been, on the place where the water would be again. "You're like that too," she said. "You need to go backward. You need to visit the source. You need to remember where you came from. And then you can come back. The same person. The same life. The same rhythm. But different. Because now you remember." I looked at the fountain. At the empty basin. At the pipe in the center. I thought about all the years I had walked past this fountain, listening to the water, watching the spray, never thinking about where it came from. Never thinking about the source. Never thinking about the ground, the earth, the deep places where the water had been before it was pushed into the air. I don't know how to go backward, I said. I don't know how to find the source. She took her hand off the stone. She looked at me, her eyes dark, her face patient. You start by stopping. You stop moving forward. You stop trying to get somewhere. You stand still, the way the fountain stands still, and you wait. You wait for the water to run backward. You wait for the memory to come. You wait for the source to find you. She walked to the edge of the fountain. She sat down on the stone, her feet dangling over the empty basin. She looked up at the sky, at the stars that were beginning to appear between the clouds. Sit with me, she said. Wait. The water will come back. It always comes back. But first, it has to go backward. First, it has to remember. And so do you. I sat down beside her. The stone was cold, the way stone is cold when it has been sitting in the dark. I looked at the empty basin, at the pipe in the center, at the place where the water would come from. I waited. The park was quiet. The trees were still. The city hummed somewhere in the distance, but it felt far away, irrelevant, the sound of a world that was moving forward while I sat still. We sat in silence for a long time. The stars moved across the sky. The air grew colder. And then, I heard it. A trickle. A whisper. The sound of water moving through pipes, underground, beneath the stone. The fountain was waking up. The water was coming back. It started slowly. A thin stream from the center pipe, rising a few inches, falling back into the basin. Then more. The stream grew thicker, higher, the spray spreading, the water catching the light. The fountain was running forward again. The same water. The same spray. The same rhythm. But different. Because now, I had seen it stop. I had seen it run backward. I had seen it remember. The woman stood up. She looked at the fountain, at the water rising and falling, at the spray that caught the light and scattered it across the basin. It remembers now, she said. And so do you. You sat still. You waited. You let the water run backward. You let the source find you. And now, you can move forward again. The same person. The same life. The same rhythm. But different. Because now you remember. She walked away. Down the path, past the trees, toward the gate. She did not look back. I sat on the edge of the fountain, watching the water rise and fall, listening to the rhythm that had been there for as long as I could remember. The basin was full again. The stone was wet. The fountain was running. I still come to this park. Not every night, but often. I sit on the edge of the fountain and watch the water rise and fall. Sometimes, it stops. The water hangs in the air, suspended, and then it runs backward. The spray retreats, the column shrinks, the basin empties. And I sit still. I wait. I let the water go back to the source. I let it remember. And then it comes back. The same water. The same spray. The same rhythm. But different. Because now, I am different too. The fountain across the path stopped mid-spray, then ran backward. And I was there. I saw it. I sat still. I waited. I let the water show me what it meant to remember. And now, when I walk through the park, when I hear the fountain running, when I see the spray catching the light, I remember too. I remember the source. The place where I began. The ground, the earth, the deep places that are still in me, even when I am moving forward, even when I have forgotten. The water runs forward again. The fountain sings. The park is full. And I am here, sitting on the stone, watching, remembering. The water stopped. The water ran backward. The water returned. And so did I. The wind was not the problem. That was the first thing I understood when I stepped outside. The air was cold, yes, the kind of cold that comes in late autumn when the sun has gone down and the city has begun to freeze. But the cold I felt was not the cold of the air. It was something else. Something that had been in me for a long time, sleeping maybe, or waiting, or growing. And now it was awake. I pulled my coat tighter. The fabric was thick, the wool rough against my fingers, the collar turned up against the wind. But the cold did not go away. It was in my chest. In my bones. In the spaces between my ribs where something had been hollowed out a long time ago and never filled. I walked down the street, my hands in my pockets, my shoulders hunched, my breath forming clouds that disappeared into the dark. The cold was inside me, and no coat could fix that. The streets were empty. That was not unusual for this hour, but tonight the emptiness felt different. Heavier. As if the city had withdrawn into itself, leaving only the bare bones of buildings and the empty paths between them. I walked without purpose. I had left my apartment because I could not sit still. Because the walls had felt too close and the silence had been too loud. But the cold was still there. It had followed me. Or it had been in me all along, and I had only just noticed. I stopped at the corner. The streetlight above me hummed, the way streetlights hum when they are old and tired. I looked at my hands. They were not shaking. They were not blue. They were just cold. The cold that was inside me had spread to my fingers, to my palms, to the tips of my nails. I pulled my coat tighter again. The wind picked up. The cold did not. A woman was standing at the other end of the street. I had not seen her approach. She was just there, under the next streetlight, her coat gray, her hair dark, her hands at her sides. She was not moving. She was just standing, watching me, waiting. I walked toward her. The cold in my chest grew heavier with each step, but I did not stop. I could not stop. She was the only other person on this street, and something in me needed to reach her. She did not move as I approached. She stood under the light, her face pale, her eyes dark, her breath forming clouds that disappeared into the air. I stopped a few feet away. The cold between us was thick, the way cold is thick when it has been gathering for a long time. You feel it, she said. Her voice was soft, the way voices are soft when they are speaking to someone who is already cold. The cold. It's not outside. It's in you. It's been in you for years. You just didn't notice. You thought it was the weather. You thought it was the season. You thought if you wore a thicker coat, if you stayed inside, if you drank something warm, it would go away. But it didn't. It never does. I pulled my coat tighter. The wool was rough against my neck. The cold was still there. It had always been there. She was right. What is it? I asked. Where did it come from? She looked at my hands, at the way they were shoved into my pockets, at the way my shoulders were hunched against something that was not the wind. It came from the things you didn't say. The things you didn't do. The doors you didn't open. The hands you didn't hold. The words you swallowed. They didn't disappear. They turned into something else. They turned into cold. And they settled in you. In your chest. In your bones. In the spaces where the warmth used to be. I thought about the things I had not said. The apologies I had swallowed. The confessions I had buried. The love I had let slip away because I was too afraid to hold it. They were still there. Not gone. Just frozen. Just cold. How do I get rid of it? I asked. How do I warm myself? She stepped closer. Her face was close enough that I could see the lines around her eyes, the way her lips were pressed together, the way her breath formed clouds that mixed with mine. You don't get rid of it. You can't. The cold is part of you now. It's been there too long. It's settled too deep. But you can stop adding to it. You can stop swallowing the words. You can stop closing the doors. You can stop letting the cold grow. She reached out and touched my chest. Her hand was cold, the way hands are cold when they have been standing in the dark. But beneath her palm, I felt something else. A warmth. Small, faint, but there. The cold in me shifted, the way ice shifts when it is touched by something warmer. The words you didn't say, she said. They're still in you. They're frozen, but they're there. You can thaw them. You can speak them. Not to anyone. Just to yourself. Just to the air. Just to the cold. Say the things you didn't say. Let them out. And the cold will get a little lighter. She took her hand away. The warmth faded. The cold returned, heavier than before, as if her touch had reminded it that it was there. I looked at her. At her face, her eyes, her hands. She was me. Or she was the part of me that had not frozen. The part that still remembered what it felt like to be warm. I don't know how, I said. I don't know how to say the things I didn't say. I don't know how to thaw the cold. She smiled. It was a small smile, the smile of someone who has been cold for a long time and is beginning to remember what warmth feels like. You start with one word. Just one. The smallest word. The one that's been frozen the longest. You say it out loud, into the air, into the cold. And then you say another. And another. And the cold will listen. The cold will remember what it was before it froze. The cold will begin to melt. She stepped back. She looked at the street, at the empty buildings, at the sky that was dark and full of stars. I have to go now, she said. The cold is in me too. I have my own words to say. My own doors to open. My own hands to hold. But I'll be here. In the cold. In the dark. In the place where the words are frozen. And when you speak yours, I'll hear them. And the cold will get a little lighter. For both of us. She walked away. Down the street, past the streetlights, into the dark. I watched her go. The cold in my chest was heavy, but something had shifted. Something had loosened. The words that had been frozen for so long were beginning to move. I stood under the streetlight. The wind picked up. The cold was still inside me. But I was not running from it anymore. I pulled my coat tighter, not to keep the cold out, but to hold myself in. To feel the shape of my own body, the weight of my own chest, the place where the words were waiting. I opened my mouth. The air was cold, the way air is cold when it has been waiting for someone to speak. I said the first word. It was small. It was quiet. It was the word I had swallowed years ago, when I had stood at a door and not opened it. The word hung in the air, a cloud of breath, and then it disappeared. But the cold in my chest shifted. Just a little. Just enough. I said another word. And another. The words came out slowly, the way water comes out of a frozen pipe, a trickle at first, then a stream. I said the things I had not said. The apologies. The confessions. The love I had let slip away. The cold listened. The cold remembered. The cold began to thaw. I stood under the streetlight for a long time, speaking into the dark, letting the words fall where they would. The cold was still there. It would always be there. But it was lighter now. The way ice is lighter when it has begun to melt. I pulled my coat tighter. The wool was rough against my neck. The wind was cold. But the cold inside me was different. It was not gone. It would never be gone. But it was moving. It was changing. It was becoming something else. something that was not just cold. Something that was the shape of the words I had finally said. I walked home. The streets were still empty. The city was still cold. But I was not the same. I had spoken into the dark. I had let the words out. And the cold inside me had listened. It would always listen. It would always remember. And someday, when all the words were spoken, the cold would be warm. Or it would not. But it would be different. And so would I. I pulled my coat tighter, but the cold was inside me, not the air. And now, I knew why. The cold was the things I had not said. The doors I had not opened. The hands I had not held. And the only way to warm it was to speak. To open. To hold. To let the words fall into the dark, one by one, until the cold remembered what it was before it froze. I am still speaking. The words are still coming. The cold is still there. But it is lighter now. The way ice is lighter when it has begun to melt. And someday, when all the words are spoken, I will pull my coat tighter, and the cold will be gone. Or it will not. But it will be different. And so will I. The bench was at the edge of the garden, the one that had been forgotten for years. I had found it by accident, wandering through the overgrown paths, pushing aside branches that had not been trimmed in decades. The garden was behind an old house, the kind of house that had been beautiful once, back when someone cared about the hedges and the roses and the stone fountain that no longer held water. The bench was wooden, dark with age, the slats cracked and warped, the legs sinking into the earth as if it was slowly being swallowed. I had been coming to this bench for weeks. Not every day, but often. It was a place to sit, a place to think, a place to be alone without feeling lonely. The garden was quiet, the way old gardens are quiet, the kind of quiet that settles into the soil and the stone and the bones of the plants that have died and grown and died again. I would sit on the bench and watch the light change through the branches, and I would not think about anything in particular. I would just be there, in the quiet, in the garden, on the bench. Tonight, she was there when I arrived. She was sitting on the bench, her hands in her lap, her face turned toward the house. She was young, or not young, or the kind of face that makes you forget to wonder. Her coat was gray, her hair was dark, her eyes were the color of the wood. She did not look at me when I approached. She just sat there, still and patient, as if she had been waiting for me to come. I stopped at the edge of the bench. I did not know her. I had never seen her before. But something in the way she sat, the way her hands were folded, the way her breath moved in and out, made me feel that I had been expected. "This bench is old," she said. Her voice was soft, the way voices are soft when they are speaking to themselves. Older than the garden. Older than the house. It was here before any of it. The wood came from a tree that stood on this spot, a tree that was cut down a long time ago. The bench was made from that tree. So the bench is the tree. And the tree remembers. I sat down beside her. The wood was cold, the way wood is cold when the sun has gone down and the earth is damp. The bench creaked under my weight, the way old wood creaks when it is reminded that it is still here, still holding, still waiting. "You come here often," she said. It was not a question. "You sit on this bench, and you don't say anything. You just sit. You breathe. You watch the light. The bench feels you. It knows your weight. It knows your silence. It's been holding you, the way it's been holding everyone who has ever sat here." I looked at the house. The windows were dark, the roof was sagging, the porch was lost in shadow. No one had lived there for years. No one would live there again. But the bench remained. The bench had outlasted the house, the garden, the people who had tended them. "Why are you here?" I asked. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were dark, the color of the wood, the color of the earth beneath the bench. Because there's something in this bench. Something that's been held too long. Something that needs to be released. I've been coming here for years, trying to find it, trying to name it. But I couldn't. Not until tonight. Not until you came. She put her hand on the wood between us. Her fingers were pale, thin, the fingers of someone who had been searching for a long time. The bench creaked, a soft sound, almost a sigh. The wood seemed to shift beneath her palm, the way wood shifts when it is warming, when it is waking. I know your name, she said. I've known it for a long time. But that's not the name I need to say. The name I need to say is older. It's the name of the person who sat on this bench before anyone else. The person who carved something into the wood, something that has been hidden for years, something that the bench has been holding, waiting for someone to find. She closed her eyes. Her lips moved, forming a word I could not hear. The bench creaked again, louder this time, a long, low sound that seemed to come from the earth itself. The wood beneath us grew warm. Not the warmth of the sun, which had set hours ago. The warmth of something that had been held too long and was finally being released. She whispered a name. I did not hear it. It was not for me. It was for the bench. For the tree that had been cut down. For the person who had carved something into the wood and then disappeared. The name hung in the air, a sound that was almost visible, a shape that was almost a person. The bench sighed. It was not a creak. It was not a groan. It was a sigh, the way a person sighs when they have been holding their breath for too long and finally let it go. The wood relaxed beneath us, the way wood relaxes when it is no longer under tension. The warmth spread through the slats, through the armrests, through the legs that were sinking into the earth. Something had been released. Something that had been held for years, decades, maybe centuries. Something that had been waiting for a name to set it free. I looked at her. Her eyes were open now, wet, the way eyes are wet when tears have been waiting for a long time. She took her hand off the wood. The bench was still. The warmth faded. But something was different. The air was lighter. The garden was quieter. The bench was empty in a way it had not been empty before. What was it? I asked. What did you release? She looked at the house, at the dark windows, at the roof that was sagging into itself. A promise. Someone sat on this bench a long time ago, and they made a promise. They carved it into the wood, not with a knife, but with their heart. They promised to come back. They promised to wait. They promised to remember. But they didn't come back. They didn't wait. They forgot. And the promise stayed in the wood. It stayed in the bench. It stayed, waiting for someone to speak the name of the person who made it. To release it. To let it go. She stood up. She looked down at the bench, at the place where her hand had been, at the wood that had held a promise for longer than anyone could remember. The name is gone now, she said. The promise is gone. The bench is just a bench. Old wood. Old slats. Old legs sinking into the earth. But it's lighter. It's been holding that promise for so long, it forgot what it felt like to be empty. Now it remembers. She walked away. Through the garden, past the overgrown hedges, toward the gate. She did not look back. I sat on the bench for a long time, my hands on the wood, feeling the place where the warmth had been. The bench was still. The garden was quiet. The house was dark. But something had changed. The bench was different. Or I was different. Or the air was different. The promise was gone. The name was spoken. The thing that had been held too long was finally released. And I had been there. I had heard the sigh. I had felt the warmth. I had watched the wood relax, the way wood relaxes when it is no longer under tension. I still come to this bench. Not every night, but often. I sit in the garden, among the overgrown hedges and the dead roses and the stone fountain that no longer holds water. The bench is old. The wood is dark. The slats are cracked and warped. But it is lighter now. It is not holding anything it should not hold. It is just a bench. Just wood. Just a place to sit. Sometimes, when the garden is quiet and the light is low, I think I can feel it. The sigh. The release. The moment when something that had been held too long was finally let go. It is in the wood, the way memory is in wood, the way time is in wood, the way everything that has ever happened is in wood, if you know how to listen. She whispered a name, and the bench sighed, releasing something that had been held too long. And now, when I sit here, I listen. I listen for the sigh. I listen for the release. I listen for the promise that was made and broken and finally, after all these years, let go. The bench is quiet. The garden is still. But something is different. Something is lighter. And I am here, sitting on the wood, feeling the place where the warmth was, remembering the name I did not hear, the promise I did not make, the release I did not know I was waiting for. The park knew. The park remembered. A woman sat down beside me. I did not see her approach. She was just there, on the bench, her hands in her lap, her face turned toward the tree. She was young, or not young, or the kind of face that makes you forget to wonder. Her coat was gray, her hair was dark, her eyes were the color of the sky. "You can feel it," she said. Her voice was soft, the way voices are soft when they are speaking about something delicate. The tears. They're in the ground. In the grass. In the dew that settles on the leaves in the morning. Every tear that has ever fallen in this park is still here. Not gone. Just changed. The park takes them in. The park holds them. And in the morning, when the dew rises, the park gives them back. I looked at the grass. It was wet, the way grass is wet when the dew has settled. I had thought it was just moisture, just the cold, just the night. But now, I wondered. How many tears had fallen on this grass? How many people had come to this forgotten park, sat on this bench, and let themselves cry? How much grief was in the ground beneath my feet? Why? I asked. Why does the park hold them? She looked at the tree above us, at the branches that reached toward the sky like arms that had been raised for a long time. Because no one else would. The people who cried here, they went home. They went back to their lives. They forgot. But the park didn't forget. The park held their tears. The park kept them safe. The park mixed them with the dew and gave them back in the morning, so that the tears would not be lost. So that the grief would not be wasted. She reached down and touched the grass. Her fingers were pale, thin, the fingers of someone who had touched many tears. The grass seemed to glow where she touched it, a faint light that was not light, a warmth that was not warmth. "Your tears are in here too," she said. "The ones you haven't cried yet. The ones you've been holding. The park knows. It's been waiting for you to come and let them fall. Not because it wants your grief. Because it wants to hold it. Because it wants to mix it with the dew and give it back to you in the morning, when the sun rises and the world begins again." I looked at my hands. They were dry. They had been dry for a long time. I had not cried in years. I had forgotten how. I had been holding my tears the way you hold your breath, waiting for something that never comes. "I don't know how," I said. "I don't know how to let them fall." She took my hand. Her fingers were cold, the way dew is cold, the way tears are cold when they have been held too long. "You don't have to know. The park knows. The ground knows. The grass knows. You just have to sit here. You just have to be here. You just have to let the park do what it has been doing for years. Holding. Waiting. mixing the tears with the dew. She let go of my hand. She stood up. She looked at the sky, at the gray clouds that were beginning to break apart, at the light that was starting to seep through. "I have to go," she said. "But the park will be here. The bench will be here. The grass will be here. And in the morning, when the dew rises, you'll see them. The tears. All of them. Yours and the ones who came before. They'll be on the leaves, on the grass, on the bench. And you'll know that you are not alone. That your grief is not alone. That the park has been holding it, waiting for you to come and let it go." She walked away. Through the grass, past the trees, toward the gate. She did not look back. I sat on the bench for a long time. The sky grew lighter. The clouds broke apart. The light seeped through, pale and gold, the color of morning. I did not cry. Not then. But something shifted. Something that had been held too tight began to loosen. The park was quiet. The grass was wet. The dew was on the leaves, on the bench, on my hands. I did not know which drops were tears and which were just moisture. It did not matter. The park knew. The park had mixed them. I came back the next morning. The dew was on the grass, on the leaves, on the bench. I sat down. I put my hands on the wood. The dew was cold, the way dew is cold when the sun has not yet warmed it. I closed my eyes. I let myself feel. The park was quiet. The city was far away. I was not alone. The tears came. Not all at once. Slowly, the way water comes when it has been frozen and is beginning to thaw. They fell on my hands, on the bench, on the grass. The park received them. The park held them. The park mixed them with the dew. I sat there for a long time. The sun rose. The dew began to evaporate, rising into the air, becoming part of the sky, part of the clouds, part of the water that would fall again as rain. The tears rose with it. Not gone. Just changed. The park had done what it had always done. Held. Mixed. Released. I come to this park now. Not every day, but often. I sit on the bench under the tree. I put my hands on the wood. I feel the dew on the grass, on the leaves, on my skin. I know that every tear that has ever fallen here is in that dew. Mine and the ones who came before. The park holds them. The park mixes them. The park gives them back in the morning, so that we know we are not alone. So that we know our grief is not wasted. So that we know that even in a forgotten park, on a cracked bench, under a tree that has lost most of its leaves, something is holding us. Something is waiting. Something is mixing our tears with the dew and giving them back to us, so that we can let them fall again, and again, and again. The park knew every tear that had fallen here. And now, I know too. I know that the dew on the grass is not just moisture. It is memory. It is grief. It is love. It is everything that has been held and released and held again. I sit on the bench, and I feel it. The cold. The warmth. The tears that are not mine and the tears that are. The park holds them all. The park mixes them with the morning dew. And I am part of it now. My tears are in the grass. My grief is in the ground. My love is in the air. And in the morning, when the dew rises, I will see it. I will feel it. I will know that I am not alone. That I have never been alone. That the park has been holding me, waiting for me to come, waiting for me to let go.
Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.